Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast. I'm Ethan Sargent. Abe Crowley's here alongside me as always. It is a little later than we usually record now with some changes in the work schedules. Well, I mean, typically my Mondays are free. I just happen to not have, both of us happen to not have a free Monday today for various reasons. So we're recording a little bit later on in the evening. I'll throw this up probably for tomorrow morning for our great fans out there. The Jungle Fever podcast is in episode number 52. A full year, AC. We've been rolling with this. It's been a lot of fun. We've enjoyed it. We've had some great moments. We've had some hilarious moments. I think it's been a fun. I love doing this.
Got
I
some
don't care if
bad
we get
takes every once in a while.
of course. I mean, I was just about to say, you know, it doesn't matter if we have 1,000 or zero viewers, and we're much closer to that second number. But I enjoy the hell out of doing this. So
Yeah,
we're gonna keep rolling with it as long as we can. So today's episode, a lot of speculation, a lot of
a lot of
nonsense.
hoopla.
Yeah, a lot of well, this might happen, basically. It's schedule talk. The schedule will be released officially on Thursday, the 14th, later this week. Um, and the Bengals have some fun
Question
games.
before we get into it. How
Yeah,
many how many Mike Vrabel, Diana Rossini jokes are going to be made in the schedule released by
you
teams?
know, you know the
What's the
Chargers.
line?
You
What's the
know the
line at?
Chargers will do one. I'm gonna go four.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think like there are some obvious teams that are going to steer clear of it. I think Tennessee and New England are two of them, and then
Right.
you know the Chargers always love to go overboard. I
Oh,
don't know if they
they're gonna
play
let
the
it rip.
I don't know if they play the Patriots or not, but um,
I don't think it matters for them. They're
it
gonna
it
find a
it may
way.
not. They'll find a way. Um, and then, some other teams will probably throw some jabs. I imagine like maybe a divisional rival like the Bills or
Yeah.
the Jets might throw
Yep.
something their way. It's not like the Jets have much else to be looking forward to. So, um, but yeah, I can see a lot of those. Obviously, it's
Sorry to
a
derail the conversation. It was just on my mind because teams just. I mean, teams like to poke
they
the
like
bear.
to put.
This
No,
is their
you're
chance to
right.
like talk trash the social admins, and then like they don't deal with any of the repercussions.
Did
They're
you
not on the
see
field.
today?
They don't
Did you see
care.
today that Kansas City did like their opponents as like food? It was the dumbest thing ever. It was so bad. Like that, the Bengals one was kind of cool, low key. They did like skyline of the bowl, but like in
Mhm.
like a bread bowl. But it was like our opponents as like sourdough breads. It was I don't know. It was so probably I'd imagine like a 23-year-old fresh out of college intern came up with that idea. Um, so the Bengals 2026 opponents, let's just read them off just to get them out of the way. At home, and obviously we won't read the divisional games. Everybody knows that. And got home and away against Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. At home this season, they've got Kansas City, they've got Jacksonville, they've got Tennessee, New Orleans, Tampa Bay. That is your home games. They do have one more away game than home game this year with the 17 games. They have Miami, Washington, Houston, Indianapolis, Atlanta, Carolina on the road this year. So before we get into like because we can predict, there's a lot of different things we can talk about with this. There's a couple like little niche questions I kind of want to talk about first. Number one, Aiden, on a scale of 0% doesn't happen, 100% doesn't happen. We're gonna do a couple exercises here. We're gonna ask a few questions. We're gonna see how it goes. Percent chance the Bengals play internationally this year, Aiden.
Ooh, they haven't yet.
It's been a
I'm
while. The last time they did was that I
right.
believe that
Yeah,
tie in London against the
right.
Commanders, then the Redskins back in was it 2016 or 17? It was a
Something like
long
that.
time
Yeah.
ago.
When I said they haven't yet, I just meant like the NFL's recent push.
Yes,
It feels like
I
over the
got you.
past like 3 or 4 years that they've really hammered into it. But I would probably put 70% chance. It really felt like last year was going to be the year that they played abroad, and it
Probably
just
for the
never
best that
happened.
they didn't.
Yeah. We can get into that later. It's going to impact some primetime games, but I do find it likely that they head overseas. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go about 65. I'm in that same kind of ballpark. I mean, I think that, where they put them is going to be an interesting discussion. Last year there were a lot of rumors they'd be that opponent for Miami in Spain.
Hmm.
This
That
year I
would have been a
haven't,
travesty.
yeah, that would have been a rough game for the Hermanos out there in Spain. Um, I mean, I think, obviously there's a chance they could go play, the Jags are always putting games in London with their ownership ties there. Jacksonville is, well, I don't know because
You would think
Jacksonville is
it wouldn't
it's
be
a,
it wouldn't be a home game.
yeah, it
It
wouldn't be
would be one of
Jacksonville as a home game. I mean, aside from that, I don't know any teams that are kind of locked into that, um, what's it called? That aspect of the international games. I don't have that list pulled up as of now. If you want to take a quick dive, I don't know if they've announced any of those yet. I think they announced one. Did they announce one international game?
it was
Well,
the
we know
league
the
opener.
Australian game.
It's Rams and
Yes, yes, that's the Thursday because it's I don't know, they're doing some weird stuff this year with the opening
yeah,
night game.
Rams 49ers are in Melbourne, Australia. It's going to be Cowboys Ravens in Rio. Mexico
Yes.
City is going to be the 49ers in TBD. The London games, two of those are Jaguar games. One of them is Commander games. So
So
I
it
guess that's
could
something
be the Commanders.
that
They
lines
could
up.
very
That
well
lines
put
up.
that game. Yeah.
Paris is going to be the Saints in TBD. They haven't announced yet. Munich would be the Lions. They haven't announced. And then Madrid, finally, the Falcons, and that hasn't been announced.
So I think the Commanders is very likely. I think that's
Commanders, Falcons.
probably um yeah, that's another one. I think one of those two. I think look for those two. It'll be an NFC game. So I guess, when the international games happen, I mean, the Bengals are a draw. I think they probably lean more towards the Commanders game if you're looking for like, Commanders going to get Jaden Daniels back healthy this year. They should be a little bit better in theory than they were last year. After what was a great 2024, a little bit less good in 25. I think I would probably, if I had to guess, I think that would be the one that, the
Yeah,
matchmakers pick.
but it's on the table. It very much is on the table.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a real possibility. It's why I brought it up. Last year we kind of discussed it a little bit. We thought it might be a possibility last year. It didn't happen. So this year, I do think it's a little bit more likely because they're trying to just get the NFL is now really kind of emphasizing that global game aspect. We're playing games in Australia now. So, um, let's go. So we're gonna do two separate ones here. Home and away primetime games. Not the whole, well, the whole number, well, we can just do the math for. Home and away, over under two for each.
Mm. Home, I'm gonna say, ooh, because I really do think I know
Could be
that
right
I know
at
the
two.
cow, huh?
I was gonna say maybe let's say two and a half. Let's put it at a
Okay, there you
half to
go.
make it a little
'Cause
bit easier.
under. Because I think it's two for home.
Yeah.
Away, I don't know if they get to four primetime games. I'll go under for the away games. That's where I'm
Okay.
at.
I think I'm gonna go under over. I think they play five. That's my theory. I mean, look, I think the Bengals are a real draw these days. Um, I
Coming off a
think
6-11 season, though, that's the only thing.
that is the issue, but when you've got Joe Burrow and you've got Jamar Chase and now Dexter Lawrence too, like that's a big part of the draw as well.
Mhm.
So, I think all of those are important questions to think about. And I think when you look at this, I think they're going to get five. I think they'll get two at home. I think they'll have one divisional game in each of those slots. So they'll have one divisional opponent home. It better be Baltimore, or I'm
I'm
going to
sticking to
lose
my
them.
guns. I know that the Cowboys and Giants just got announced as Sunday Night Football for week one. I originally called that to be the primetime game week one. Monday Night Football still is on the table, so I'll call it now. I
So
think Bengals are gonna win that game.
the only issue with that, and I saw this too, the Reds are back at home on Monday night. The Reds are
Mm.
coming back from Milwaukee
On
or
the
something.
road, on the road, Bengals Ravens at Baltimore
Oh
Monday
my
Night
God.
Football.
I'd put a remote through the wall. Like, it would just be so lazy. And like I think the NFL knows now, like the Bengals probably complained about it last year. I think, obviously last year they went there and won, which was awesome. But like, it was a legitimately 22, it was 4 straight years in Baltimore in prime time. Now, they very well could put that game in either one of those premium 1 p.m. slots, or like CBS could pick it up for that 4:25 slot, which they value very highly. Same with Fox.
Mhm.
So, it's
That
a
that Chiefs game screams
Oh,
425.
absolutely. No, CBS, that'll be one of CBS's like, they do this kind of like a draft. It really is like we've started to, some of the college football ones started trickling down today, like shock and all, Michigan's Ohio State's going to be at noon, right? Like they've started to do that. But when you look at the way that I guess that the NFL kind of does. It's a little different. It's not quite that kind of draft that college does, but it very much is that, it is kind of a bidding war at times. And then some networks get priority over others in certain situations, especially when it comes to the conferences and all that. So yeah, I think I can see that. So let's kind of look at the opponents now. Let's kind of dive in and kind of highlight let's kind of talk about like the schedule itself here and talk about. So obviously we talked about this a little bit last week. This is the third easiest strength of schedule relative to last year in terms of opponent win-loss record from 2025. So when you look at the schedule, there are some very interesting teams on here. I think getting the AFC South this year is extremely interesting. I think the AFC South as a division is just in a very interesting spot right now. You've got Houston, who obviously have a phenomenal defense, maybe the best in football, but CJ Stroud coming off a very, let's just call it interesting year. I don't want to say it was terrible, but just not quite where he was, especially his rookie season. That offense needs some retooling. You've got Jacksonville, who were kind of one of the trendy stories of the AFC last year, came up short in the playoffs against Buffalo. Which version of Trevor Lawrence do you get? They had to replace a lot of guys. Their draft was very, I don't want to say criticized, but like
It was.
scrutinized.
You
Yeah,
can say it was criticized. It was. I mean, they
it was
just
put under
drafted.
the microscope, very
Yeah.
much put under the microscope. There were some interesting decisions across the board in that draft. Tennessee is a interesting one. They've got a new head coach in Robert Saleh. They still got Cam Ward. Still kind of feels like Tennessee's a year or two away. Remember, they've got that big stadium, big fancy new stadium coming in a couple of years. I think honestly, if you're Tennessee's ownership, you don't really want to contend just yet. You kind of like this is, I'm purely thinking from a business perspective here. You kind of want to like be okay, like so, like see Cam Ward show some steps, but be okay. Maybe get some more high level talent in there, whether that's be a free agency or the draft, and then be good. Right, I think that stadium's scheduled to open in 2028. You want to try and peak right there as that new fancy stadium opens, and then the Colts. Who knows what the Colts are going to look like? You've got so many question marks across that team in terms of the quarterback, in terms of kind of everything else. It's a very intriguing matchup, I think, with the Colts, who obviously swung big last year at the trade deadline with the acquisition of Sauce Gardner. That didn't pan out. Really not Sauce's fault, but that didn't pan out. And now, they again, they don't have their first round pick again this year because of the same trade. So they have to kind of find a way to win. Will Daniel Jones be ready? What do they do? It'll be an interesting thing. So I think which AFC South team, I guess, which game kind of scares you the most in terms of the Bengals and what they're looking to do?
I
I
think
think
that
there's an
Houston
obvious
game.
answer.
That it has to be
Yeah,
that Houston game.
it
It
has
just
to be Houston.
just from the standpoint of, I mean, Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. are the best edge duo in the league. It's not even close. You think about their secondary and what they're able to do. I mean, uh, you mentioned it's arguable that they're the best defense in the league. I don't think it is. I just think that they
They're
are.
good. They're
I
real
don't
good.
I don't think
D'Amico
you
has
can argue
done one
that.
heck of a
I
job.
mean, Petrie as your third corner in the nickel is just filthy.
Yep.
And
He
I think
hits
they
like a
will be.
freight train.
Yeah, I think they will be improved on offense because I don't think what happened last year with the Texans is a CJ Stroud issue. And maybe that's a hot take for some people. I think the issue was their lack of running production. They were well into the bottom of the league when it came to run success rate. Some of that comes down to their offensive line play. Some of that's also just they didn't have the guys back there. I mean, at a certain point, they were relying on 45-year-old Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Not really. He's kind of young, but
And
he's
and
had some.
interestingly, in the
So
draft, Houston actually went with
they went
four of their
double
seven
guard.
picks were on defense, and three of the three offensive picks, two of them were guards, and Keelan Rutledge out of
And
Georgia Tech, and then Fabechi Nwaiwu out of Oklahoma. So,
yeah. And
and
then
then they got
they drafted a blocking tight end out of Michigan. You can
yeah,
tell
yeah,
where they
Marlon
want to go.
Clark.
They want to run the football better. They got
Yep,
David Montgomery this offseason. Like
they did. That was
they
the
need to
big
be able to run the
acquisition.
football
Yep.
better.
I
So
mean, they
I
lost, old friend Joe Mixon kind of just disappeared off the face of the earth for them last year, who,
Yeah.
very mysterious situation there. You still got Nico Collins. And I think at the end of the day for Houston, it all comes down to number seven, right? I think if you're truly going to contend, if you want to be a Super Bowl contender, CJ Stroud has to play like it. I mean, that Patriots game was bad, right? It
But
was,
I would argue that that play and that drop in production is because of the
yeah.
inability to
No,
run the
I'm
football.
not like,
He's being
I
asked,
love CJ. I want him to
yeah, he's
succeed.
being asked to throw the football on 3rd and 8 more than any other quarterback in the NFL. That's when NFL defenses are just going to eat you alive.
100%. And I think that when you look at what Houston's trying to do, and when you look at what they have done on defense already, they just need a couple of things to click offensively, and they could be a Super Bowl contender. So that could be. I could see that game being a prime time. Like that's like a prime like Thursday night game kind of feel. Like in Houston, they'll like white out their stadium, Bengals roll up in the all black, something like that. And yeah, that could be a really, really good game and a great test for Joe Burrow. I'd love to see that game early in the season. I'd love to see if the Bengals company that could be a big test of the Super Bowl credentials should the Bengals be there. Um, Before we get into I mean, we talked so much about these divisional teams, and we're probably not going to touch on them a lot today, just because we already, we touch on Ravens, Pittsburgh, and Houston. My God, Cleveland all the time on this podcast. Let's talk about the NFC teams the Bengals are going to play. At home, they'll get New Orleans and Tampa Bay, and then on the road they will play. So they're going to play the NFC South again this year. They'll play Atlanta and Carolina, and then the extra game is that Commanders game. Um, which of those five teams intrigues you the most um, out of the NFC in those cross divisional matchups?
Intrigues me, my answer would probably be the Falcons. I'm just interested in what that they are going to show. Now, I don't think that they're going to
And
be
you could
bad.
go toughest. We'll do toughest too. We'll
Yeah,
bonus.
yeah, yeah. But it just you never know in the NFC South. It's just literally roll the dice every single year. But I still think, and I think a lot of our friends who are Browns fans would agree. I think Kevin Stefanski's a good coach. I do. I just don't think that he had a winning system around him. So you bring him to Atlanta. Now, the biggest question mark is the biggest position in the sport, quarterback. Obviously Penix went down with another knee injury. You bring in Tua, which is hilarious. So what is that going to look like? But you have playmakers. Obviously, Bijan is just one of the best
One of the
players in the
best,
league,
if not the best.
period. And then you have Drake London, who had an amazing year last year on defense. I really like some of their pieces. And so I think that they have some of the infrastructure to succeed. Their offensive line, when it comes to run blocking, is one of the best in the league. I think Bijan kind of inflates those numbers a little bit, but it's still something to look at. So, but again, quarterback is the question. So I'm just very curious. And also the Saints. I really like what the Saints did this
The
offseason.
Saints are so intriguing because I feel
I
like
don't
they
think
could
they're
like
ready
there's a
to
world.
compete yet, but
I was gonna
they're
say I
in.
think there's a world where the Saints go like 2-15, and then there's a world where the Saints could like sneak into the playoffs at 10-7. We've seen this division kind of be like
Mhm.
okay at best in terms of like we saw the Panthers get in last year at 9-8. So I think all four of those NFC South teams have like honestly all five of these NFC teams could really vary in terms of where they might end up. Atlanta's interesting, right? The big question mark now around James Pierce Jr., who they gave up a big amount of draft capital for. It looks like there's going to be some sort of agreement and he's going to be playing again for them, which that's a whole separate thing. But when he did play, he was a very good football player. We talked a lot about James Pierce last year in our Bengals conversations as one of the players the Bengals may look to target. I think that defense, they bring in the younger brother of their already great corner, AJ Terrell and Avion Terrell. They bring in Zachariah Branch in the draft, staying home for him. I think that adds kind of that shifty kind of speed demon to that offense. Another face to, saw how Tua was able to utilize a guy like that, with the speedsters that he had in Miami. So, yeah, Atlanta's very interesting. New Orleans, right? They've got a very, very intriguing receiving core this year. Now, when you look at Chris Olave and Jordan Tyson on opposite sides, I mean, that's good. Like
It's
that's
funny. Yeah, I love that draft pick because Jordan Tyson, if I had to give a comp, would be like Chris Olave. And it's just
yeah,
like Chris Olave is such like a matchup nightmare because he's big, but he's still quick and able
quick.
to beat you. And it's like, oh, by the way, we're gonna get a second one of those. Good luck. And I really like that out of New Orleans, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a couple of things I feel like, the Kellen Moore and company need to get better at. Like, I think the D line is still a big question mark for them. Couple of other, like that defense, I think just kind of needs a retooling, but I think they attacked it a little bit in the offseason. And, I think they're looking for Shug to continue to take some of those steps that he took last year, right? Which I thought, for a rookie that came in kind of halfway through the year, he had a pretty positive year one. So you're looking to see more. You're looking to continue to have Shug develop. Carolina, obviously they went out and spent in free agency, right? They saw what they did last year. They went out and spent. They brought in Devin Bush. They brought in Jalen Phillips, right? They spent a whole lot of money in free agency. And this is and look, Bryce Young, you better
This
you
is the
better
prove it
do.
year.
Right?
Yeah.
Like last year, he was solid, right? He got them to the playoffs, played really well in the playoffs. They almost pulled a big upset over the Rams. But now, I mean, now for Carolina, you gotta contend. They got the backing from the ownership. They went out, they spent the money. They're in the top of the league in cap spending. They actually spent the most in free agency of any team. You better go win, right? It's not a question. So that'll be an interesting game for the Bengals. That'll be on the road in the opposite Queen City over in Carolina. And then the final NFC South team is the Buccaneers. And I mean, the Buccaneers are in a little bit, it kind of feels like the Buccaneers are a team stuck in limbo. I don't know if you have the same kind of feeling that I do, where like, yeah, Baker Mayfield is solid, but can he really win you a Super Bowl? And then like Todd Bowles is a solid coach, but can he win you a Super Bowl? I think the answer to both of those questions is no. And like you're shaking your head, so I think you agree with me. Like, I thought, they made a great pick with taking Ruben Bay Jr. I thought I think he'll thrive in Tampa Bay. I think their defense, as it has typically been under Todd Bowles, is pretty good. But remember, they lost a legend in Mike Evans. I'm not sure where a lot of that receiving production is going to go. Chris Godwin is getting older and he's very injury prone. Emeka Egbuka had a great start to last year, but kind of really went AWOL down the stretch for them. They're going to need more consistent production from him. And then they just like it feels like they do there's a couple holes you can poke in that team. So I think honestly, Tampa Bay might be the team I'm least intrigued about in that division because I think you kind of know. And look, if a Bucks fan wants to come after me, so be it. But like, that's kind of my
The
thoughts on
core is
them.
aging. Like they're just like I
Yeah,
don't know. They're it's
and
like
they just lost one of the biggest
they
pieces.
missed a window that wasn't really there, in my opinion.
Look,
I love their draft. Ruben
they
Bain,
got
I
the
love
greatest
that pick.
quarterback of all time, and
Um,
they won a Super Bowl with him.
Right, right. So I love their draft and Ruben Bain, and then Keontae Scott was one of my favorite picks of the
Yes, yep.
draft period because he needed to go to a team where he's like Mike Hilton but bigger. Like he just blitzes. That's all he wants to do. What does Todd Bowles love to do? Blitz his DBs. So that was like the perfect situation for him. I love Trotter. I loved that pick. I thought they had one of the best drafts. So it's interesting because they have that, but then you think about some of their best players. It's Chris Godwin, who's older, coming off that huge injury. Vita Veda. Via Veda is aging out a little bit.
Hmm.
Baker was injured a bunch last year, and you have a lot of questions there. Bucky Irving, obviously young, but coming off of that weird injury and like kind of almost mental episode that he had, and you don't know what version of Bucky you're gonna get. So I'm probably lower on the Bucks than I think a lot of, at least in recent years, people have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah, they're an interesting kind of team to discuss. Now let's talk about, I think honestly, if I had to say the most intriguing, this is the team I go for most intriguing here in the Commanders because the pendulum with this team could swing so wildly when you really kind of think about it. Obviously, last year, very down, right? The schedule got a little tougher. Jade Daniels got banged up for long portions of last season. He had, I think, three or four different injuries throughout the course of the year. He had that nasty dislocated elbow against Seattle. He had a couple other kind of, issues in his knee and other stuff. You got to keep him upright. You got to keep him healthy, right? You saw what you were able to do when you were able to keep him upright. And for me, the O line is still a big question mark. I don't know how well they addressed it, to be quite honest. I think that there are still some big questions, especially on the interior of that line. You get Laramie Tunsil on the outside, who, is a very good tackle, but I don't know. I still question Sam Cosmi is still, I don't think quite the same self that he was before that ACL tear in the playoffs. I just, I don't know. I'm not sold on the line. However, the defense I think is going to get a whole lot better with Sonny Styles on the interior, right? I think, you get a player like that and, he's going to be a quarterback for that defense. He's going to be able to kind of reshape it. It's a perfect, Bobby Wagner replacement, right? Last year, Bobby Wagner, still a solid player, but he's 30, 37 years old. He's not getting any younger. He's nowhere near his prime. Sonny Styles is an athletic freakazoid specimen, and you can insert him right there. And while he may not have the instincts and the knowledge that Bobby Wagner had and has in his long career, you get the twitch and athleticism of I think somebody that's instantly going to be one of the better linebackers in football. So Sonny Styles is going to come in. Their secondary, I think, is a couple of question marks. They're still a little thin
Corner is a
there.
huge concern for them.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I think when you look at this team top to bottom, when you've got Jaden Daniels, you've got a chance, right? And if he can stay healthy and if those weapons can continue to be better, they got some question marks at running back too. You got Crossy Merritt still there. They brought in Rashad White. They brought in Jerome Ford. They drafted Katron Allen. They have a whole bunch of guys back there. Don't really have a one. They got like four twos essentially. Um,
Mhm.
and then you got Antonio Williams on the outside, a guy that I really like. I was high on him last year, and obviously Clemson's kind of as a team didn't have the year I thought they were going to have. But I think Williams is an NFL guy. I think he's like 6'4", 220. He's just one of those physical dominator type of receivers that, is not going to outspeed out, not going to outrun a lot of guys, but when he gets up at the point, he reminds me, he's not quite as good as T was, but I see a little T in him. Like it's easy to make because they're both went to the same university. So those are the NFC opponents. Some fun games on there. So we attacked
Well,
those
they
two.
added they added Owe as well, which I
They
really
did
like.
add Owen. That was their big kind of
Yeah, that was
money
a
throw
splash.
there. Yes, that was the big splash there on the outside. So outside of the division, we still have one team to talk about.
Do we
There's
got
one team we have to talk about, and it is the
Michael
Kansas
Roth's
City
favorite team?
Chiefs.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Dolphins. All right.
Well,
Oh, we
that's
have
right.
one.
We have two. We have
Yeah.
two. That's right. We have two. Let's talk about Miami first. Let's save
Michael
them for
Roth's favorite
last.
team, the Miami Dolphins.
So Miami, man, this could be a rough year for Miami.
It
I
will be.
just like I really don't hate bringing in Malik Willis. I think there's a good quarterback there. However, I think he's getting thrown to the wolves. Like, who is he throwing the ball to?
You and
Waddle
me,
is gone.
bro. You.
Tyreek Hill is still unsigned.
It's
I have
Malik Washington, wide receiver one, bro. It's his time.
Bryce is happy about that. He's about the only person. It's just I
Darren
don't know.
Waller returns back to his giant self.
I mean, you've got Devon A-Chain out there. They could do some really
Oh, dude,
fun things in the read
pray for
option.
Devon Achane. I mean,
If they
dude,
want to have some fun in the read option, they absolutely can with him and Malik in that backfield. But like outside of that, the O line, obviously, they went heavy on the O line in the draft. They went and took Caden Proctor in the first round. They, spent a lot of time on that O line, and Proctor is, somebody who is gonna probably take some development, right? It's not just a plug and play type situation. I think if it is, it may
he'll
go
play
very
center.
wrong for Miami. So, and where do you play him, right? Yeah, like you said, he could play guard. He's so huge, he might just have to play tackle. But he's raw. I think that's the easiest way to sum him up is he's very raw. And yeah, there are world beating moments, but there's a lot of bad tape on him. It's why we were kind of hesitant on him throughout when we, talked about the Bengals when they were in pick 10 before Lawrence, right? It was don't not really in on Caden Proctor. So yeah, Miami, and then I haven't even touched on the defense, and it's probably best if I don't. There's just not a lot going on
Dude,
there. I mean,
Who's CB1 next year? Do you want me to list off some of these corners?
I'd love to hear this.
Our good pal Marco Wilson back.
Yeah, he's back in Miami.
Dude, some of these names I don't even recognize. I love the pickup of Chris Johnson. Love Chris
Good
Johnson out
pick.
of
Yes, they did get him.
yeah.
He's probably
And
CB1.
then no, CB1 is the best name in football. Storm Duck, bro.
Oh, it is
It's
Storm
his
Duck.
time. It's
Right.
his time to shine.
That just fills you with confidence, doesn't it? Oh
Okay, I
boy.
will say the only part about this team that I like is their linebacking core with Brooks, and then they brought in
Yep.
Jacob Brown. So that's about it.
Yeah. Decent. I mean, that. I think they're in for a long year. All right, we're getting a
They're
little
they're
low on
playing for next
time.
year. They're playing for next year.
They are, right? We've obviously talked a lot about next year's draft and how it's going to be a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of that. And I mean, I don't know, maybe they'll stick with Malik Willis. And I
They
think,
paid him a lot of money too.
I was gonna say, I think if I had to do a mock draft right now, I think a very popular destination for one Jeremiah Smith might be here in Miami, homecoming, right, for JJ. So very could be the move, right? You spent a lot of money on Malik, could be a simple, easy maneuver there, and he'd be, an instant fan favorite down there in Miami. And let's talk about these guys. Ugh, I hate this. I really hate Kansas City. You hate the divisional teams, of course, but like, right, competition breeds rivalry. And, while it's been a few years now, I don't think there's any Bengals fan that likes the Chiefs. It doesn't matter, I think, at this point now, when you've got these two quarterbacks where they are. um, the big question for Kansas City is Mahomes is coming off a pretty big injury. Tore his ACL in, what was it, week 12, week 13, something like that, late in the year. It kind of, the wheels kind of fell off after that. They traded up in the draft to go get some help in the secondary. They traded up to go get Mansour Delane out of LSU. I like the pick itself. I trading up for it. It is what it is. They must probably got some sort of intel that Delane was going to go, something like that.
The
Have to guess.
Commanders allegedly loved Delane, and so they jumped the Commanders to take him. Is
Yeah, I would have
where
been kind of sad if Styles was there at 10. That would have been one of the guys where I was like, dang, like if he's there at 10, I would have wanted the Bengals to take him, but I digress. Um, Kansas City's in a weird spot. Their secondary, right? We talked about, I mean, one good corner coming in the draft, Mansour Lane, one very good corner out the door. Trent McDuffie over to LA. That's a big loss, right? Trent McDuffie became one of the best corners in football for Kansas City over the last few years. One of their better players in the secondary is now on the opposite side of this rivalry with Brian Cook coming over to Cincinnati. So they've got a lot of big bodies to replace in that secondary. Jordan Watson followed Trent McDuffie to LA. So they've got a lot of big, big players that they need to replace in that back end. And that could kind of be like a work in progress thing. It might be something they work on in training camp. There might be a lot of different bodies that roll in and out of that team. You've still got Rashee Rice, and that offense. And I think, again, the big question, right? You can do all this sort of stuff. Mahomes, so far, so good from everything I've seen in his ACL recovery, but you can't, like, and I have a brother who's torn his ACL twice. You never know until you really get out there on the field and feel it for the first time, right? Like, you have to get hit one more time. You have to, get back on your feet. And look, we've seen, and obviously people have made this comparison before. Tom Brady tore his ACL the same season that Mahomes did, in his ninth year, just like Mahomes. Tom Brady tore his ACL and he had another Hall of Fame career after it. So, I'm hoping, right? I don't want him to, like, I want Mahomes to do well. I'm hoping he doesn't selfishly because I want the Bengals to do well. But like as a person, like I don't wish ill on anybody. Um, but it's not easy, right, to come back from that. So, all of Kansas City's hopes.
I think
I
he'll
don't,
be just
yeah, like I'm not like we do all
um
of this, and then he comes
yeah.
back and they go 11-6 or better,
Shefty's
right?
reporting he might be ready by week one, which is
Pretty
insane.
crazy when you really think about it.
Yeah, the timeline of that. But the quarterback show that came out on Netflix, they did an in-depth dive of the way that Mahomes treats his body and what he does in order to keep it in that shape. And it's incredible because you think about it and you think about the shirtless pictures of him with like a dad bod, but he takes care of himself extremely well to bounce back from these sorts of injuries very well. He's
Well, and like,
not
and that's the
the
thing,
part of it that's
like
concerning
all
me.
these athletes do. Like I don't think we realize as like normal people, like how much these guys spend. Like I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, like how much these guys spend on their bodies, like millions and millions of dollars a year on training, on
Right.
food, right, on all this stuff. These guys spend so much money. They also took Peter Woods, a guy we talked about a whole lot with the Bengals,
Yeah.
with their
That's my
second
biggest
first
concern
round
for this
pick.
team. That's my
Um,
biggest concern for this team is the trenches on both sides of the ball. Who's
Chris
playing
Jones
tackle
isn't
for
getting
this
any
team?
younger. Yeah,
Who's playing tackle for this team? Who's getting after the quarterback? George Karlaftis was great
fell
last year. He doesn't
off.
have a running. He doesn't have a running mate at all. And then obviously, it seemed like Jones kind of lost a step last year, which is makes sense. How old is actually
I think he's
Casey?
he's in his
He's
30s.
31. He's 31. So he lost a step. It's just you can't win games without good trench play, and that's my biggest concern with Kansas City. I think that's why they took a step back last year. Even when Mahomes was healthy, they weren't playing
Yeah,
well.
they were even if Mahomes didn't tore his ACL, like they probably wouldn't have made the playoffs regardless.
Right,
Like even if they had won those games. So
right.
I do like them taking Cyrus Allen. I didn't like that pick because
Mhm.
I think Cyrus Allen's a really good football player. All right. Last exercise. We got a few more minutes. Give me the Bengals primetime games. Just do you know what you can do a week if you want to, but just give me more of the games specifically. Which games do you think
Baltimore. I think week one. I'm sticking to
100%?
my gun. I'm sticking to my guns. It's week one. Baltimore for sure. I think the Chiefs game is going to be 4:25. I don't think it will be prime time. Give
Yeah,
me
I agree.
give me the Steelers. It's written in the stars. They have to have a game that's prime time. I like that Houston call. That's probably it for me, to be honest with you. I know that they have the star power and everything, but when you go 6-11 last year, it's hard to really sell
Mhm.
it, even with the addition. So I think like 3 to 4 primetime games for Cincinnati this year.
Okay, I'm gonna go Baltimore at home. I think they finally get them at home this year. And I think that will be the Stripe the Jungle game. That's my take. I think they will get this is where it gets tough because I think that's a layup. I think Pittsburgh on the road. Um, I think that will be a primetime game. I think I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say it now. I think Commanders in what is it? Where are they? What's the international game for the
Oh
Commanders?
boy,
Is it Madrid
let me look. I
or is
just
it like Germany? I'm just gonna say that game is international, and I'm gonna make that call.
London,
Uh,
London, London.
London. I think Commanders in London. I think that will be. It's not really prime time, but I think they'll play an international game. I'm gonna go Houston on a Thursday night. I don't know when, but that kind of screams Thursday night game to me. And I'm gonna go one more. I'm gonna go Carolina. Battle of the Queen Cities. I think they put that game in prime
You
time.
think that's
I
prime
think
time?
we haven't really we've only seen Bryce Young versus Joe Burrow once, and both teams were 0-3. So I think you know and Carolina is obviously much better than they were that year, and the Bengals weren't that great that year either. So that's my take. I think they'll get four prime times and then an international game. So I guess like 4.5. I guess we'll call it.
Right.
But we'll see. We'll talk about it next week. Next week, we'll go game by game. We will break them all down. We'll kind of talk about the easy stretches. I remember last year we were talking all about that big stretch they had where it was Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore. And it started great and then didn't go so great down the stretch. So, hopefully the schedule makers are a little kinder to the Bengals this year. We'll see how they stack them up. We'll talk about it next week. But that's all the time we got here on this week's Jungle Fever Pod. Again, we'll break that all down
Got
next
it.
week. We'll talk about it. If anything else notable happens, we will break it down for you next week. And Joe Burrow was in the building this week, by the way. Remember we talked about that last week? Remember how
Yeah,
everybody was
the
crying,
team posted
complaining? He
about
was there.
15 thirst traps of him. You know he's going to be there when they're posting all the videos of him looking
I
good.
would too. I would too. So that's all the time we got today. We'll be back next week on the Jungle Fever Podcast.